I founded EDDS Consulting in 2012, and it started from general management trainings. The first training that I offered was called Effective Time Management, and since then, from 2012 till to date, it has evolved and changed a lot. And now it is called Three-Dimensional Time Management Framework. Let's Optimize Life. This is the complete title of this training. After about 1 year, I started providing lean transformation services as well for the local industry, and I started one of my first lean transformation project at a local furniture manufacturing company where I provided the services for about 16 to 17 months. And shortly, the situation when I started the consulting project was that the shop floor, the production floor was operating almost completely. You can say about 90 to 95% everything was being worked out of memory. There was very little documentation, and the documentation that used to be created was also actually in you can say in a coded form, which only the person who wrote that document or that job card can understand what he is writing, and the person he was sending that document, he was not writing anything in detail, or in short, there was no documentation and all. There was no procedures, there were no manuals, there were no machine, there were no assigned machine operators. There was a havoc. There was just a haphazard system going on. But the situation was that the person who started the factory about 25 to 30 years back was now retiring, and his son, who was a fresh mechanical engineer, was taking over as the CEO. He was also did MBA from a local university, and after completing his MBA, he was now joining in about 2-3 months as the CEO of the company. His father was not completely leaving the premises, but he was mostly inactive and was taking only the executive or financial type of decisions, and he was not involved in the day-to-day operations of the factory. Those were to be seen by the new fresh CEO that was coming in, and the CEO who was now joining was completely lost. He tried to create some documentation. He worked hard to create some reports, and some of the reports started coming, some papers started coming to his desk. But unfortunately, the situation when I joined as a consultant, the situation was that whenever a report came to that fresh CEO, when we used to go on the floor to verify or validate that report almost always 95% of that report was just rubbish. It was not based on facts. About 85% of the orders were late. Almost every product that reached the finished goods area, almost every part went through a rework. That was the situation. We started to create, and one more very important thing is that all the products, there were about 150 or more products that were being created inside the factory and presented in the factory showroom. More than 150 products, but none of the products drawings or dimensional details were known to anyone in the factory except 1 or 2 people who were very senior, They had all this information in their minds, and the, the problem was, and the situation that was creating a lot of worry for me and for the fresh CEO was that the person who knew all that was about to retire in about 7 or 8 months. So either we had to give him an extension of his service, or we should have all that information documented. So we started gradually, and the situation was, I'm just trying to convey the gravity of the situation. When we started, when we just tried to start documenting those products, and one by one we started creating CAD drawings, computer drawings of those products. That person, that foreman who had all that information, objected to that initiative, and he actually wanted us to stop that, because, and he declared that that situation was only a wastage of time, and because he was involved in that, and and a person who was appointed on creating CAD drawings was regularly sent to him in order to get some information from out of the foreman. So he said that he is too busy, and that person, that CAD person, is actually wasting his time. And the situation went up to a point when that foreman, along with his about 10 to 15 people, went on a leave, and for about 7 days or so, 7 or 8 days, he remained absent, and he just disappeared. It was not a leave, actually. He just disappeared from the scene along with his 10 to 12 people. So this was the situation. It was a very difficult situation, and people were actually blackmailing against the improvement effort that we were actually planning to initiate. Anyways, this whole was the scenario when we started the lean transformation efforts. Very slowly and gradually, we started small things, and we did not stop the CAD effort. Initially, we had to do some reverse engineering. I myself and the person that I hired for the CAD drawings creation, we instead of pulling information from that foreman, we started reverse engineering. We opened all the important and high volume furnitures. We dismantled, disassembled them, took dimensions of every part, and we redesigned the process as well. And it was demonstrated that a product that was being created in about 6 to 7 days, we were able to create that product in about 10 to 11 hours. With that reverse engineering and that CAD drawing and detailed dimensions and redesign of the process. Now the floor was very conscious, and a lot of people were happy. Some people were not happy about that progress, because that had a potential of reducing the overtime, and a lot of other apprehensions that were in the mind of people who wanted to continue the status quo. Anyways, that with 2-3 things. One was the conversion, the documentation of each process, the process of each process, the procedures we wrote, assignment of every workstation to a particular person, so that if a defect is created, we can figure out that defect was created from which workstation and who was working on that workstation, not in order to blame that person, but in order to educate him and train him and tell him how he can avoid that defect in future. There were no and I got an assurance from the CEO that he will not punish anyone for any mistake for some amount of time, so that we can do a lot of experimentation. And during the experimentation, we had mistakes, and we learned from our mistakes, and that during the period of about 16 to 17 months, we were able to reduce the late orders from 85% to almost 22%. The defect rate was almost 89%, and we reduced that defect rate to about 15% of the parts were reworked. The complete products were converted into CAD drawings, and now sophisticated dimension CAD drawings were being given by the job card section to the production planning section, to the production floor, and everything was being manufactured based on that CAD drawing. Now, most of the system was converted from memory to the documentation, to actual hard information that was saved with the planning department, and there was no dependency on one single person, that if he disappears or if he goes on leave, the whole factory is now with a situation that nobody knows what to do. Sales increased, customer satisfaction increased by many times, the quality of the products increased, the capacity of the production capacity of the factory increased. As I gave an example just a few minutes back, that we reduced the production time of one of the product from about 6 days to just 11 hours. So this happens in many of the products where the total manufacturing, the total lead time was reduced many times. So one of the major reason of late orders was that the sales people were getting orders, and they were very active. They were the quality of the product that was produced out of the factory was good, and the showrooms were good, their presentation was good, so the orders were coming. But when the order came, the production floor did not have the capacity to deliver those products, because the total lead times, the total process time of manufacturing one product was tremendous, was huge. So the capacity increased, customer satisfaction increased, turnover increased, the employee, the people who were leaving the factory, that number reduced by many times. And we also started an incentive program, and we divided the sections, divided the teams, and every team had a productivity target, and by productivity and defect reduction target, and that by achieving that target they had incentive, and they had bonuses, etc. Many efforts, and this whole effort was done in about 16 to 17 months, and that was complete transformation of that factory. And after that, and this transformation was actually, since it was done by everything was done by the people who were inside the factory. They themselves realized the benefit of all those efforts, so it was sustainable. When I left the factory, I had trained about 5 to 7 people who were with me right from the start of the project, and they knew how they improve the factory, and I was confident, and they were confident as well, and the CEO was also confident that the improvement was sustainable, and they will be able to continuously do the improvement efforts and continuously increase the improvement. So this very shortly I have tried to convey the potential that lean thinking. Lean, again, I would say that lean is not actually just some tools, 5S or Kanban, or it's not like that. It's actually the way you see things around yourself. You realize what's going on, and you think from the perspective of the customer, you think from the perspective of the value addition, and lean is also the way you react to a situation. For example, if a defect is created, one reaction could be to say who did it, and that question actually comes from a mind where you want to blame someone for a defect that has been created. Another reaction is that you start thinking why this happened. So then when you ask why and how questions, then you start thinking that what is the problem with our process, what is the problem with the training of the operator or the person who is doing that particular process that created a defect. You analyze that, and then you improve the process, and that gradual improvement effort actually transforms the enterprise, and the person who goes through this whole process of improvement understands how the improvement effort is actually done. Thank you for listening this very brief introduction of some of I have tried to communicate a potential that you can realize from the lean transformation efforts, and those efforts first started under the guidance of some consultant, and after some period of time, by involving the internal people, this continuous effort, continuous improvement effort becomes sustainable, and that can be sustained by the people who are inside the factory. Thank you.